Whitehall Roman Villa was built in the second half of the 3rd century AD on a hillside overlooking the Upper Nen Valley. The geophysical survey of the area shows many features, both early Roman and late Roman. They were all typical of the farming landscape of those times. The villa settlement stood within a ditch and bank enclosure of about 2 hectares. The villa itself was a medium-sized, winged corridor villa, built of stone, with 2 stories. There were communal rooms on the ground floor and private rooms above. The villa was built between 2 2nd-century roundhouses, which were eventually demolished. Stone from one roundhouse was reused when the bathhouse next door to it was remodelled in the 4th century. The bathhouse was larger than might be expected for a villa of this size. Both the villa and the bathhouse had sophisticated and luxurious interior decoration. The site was discovered by metal detectorists in 1996 and has been excavated for 1 month each year since 2000. We found evidence of continuous occupation for at least 500 years, from the roundhouses to a post-Roman timber building on what had been the villa courtyard. The remains of the villa itself were just the robbed-out foundations, with only a few stones left in place. But the bathhouse still has standing walls up to 8 courses high. The bathhouse has a full set of rooms. There was a stoke house built on the side at one end. In the caldarium, the hot room, the remains of the hypocross are clearly visible. Looking into the caldarium from the stoke room, you can see the pilae, the squat columns of tiles which supported the floor above the circulating hot air. The site has produced an impressive collection of finds.
We've had a full range of finds. The bathhouse in particular has been extremely interesting in that we've found a lot of personal items such as bone hairpins, coins, quite a lot of domestic material. Now, that's interesting in that, are we looking at a domestic structure at some time, or has it always been a bathhouse? The artifactual information informs the picture you have of the buildings, and that's where it's interesting there, because we've got such a wealth of stratigraphy and finds coming out. There are 2 things that really I find interesting. One is the actual working out a detective story of how these buildings fitted together, how they developed, where they came from, and what happened to them at the end. So that's where I get a lot of interest. But in terms of finds, the ones that I really find interesting are the sort of very personal items, such as the bone hairpins. You know, they've got that sort of personal radioactivity of the person that was last used them, and you're really in contact with that sort of personal element. So I like those things, not so much the things that might be of great worth, although we don't find that many things like that.
The floor of room 3B in the bathhouse was a waterlogged sealed context. Last year you started to excavate room 3B, which was turning up wood and all sorts of interesting things. What about this year? How's that gone on?
Well, again, we've continued removing the sealed context from that room, which is the importance of that context is that it hasn't been contaminated by later periods of use. I think what we can say about this deposit is that it was deposited over a very short time frame, and is really a snapshot of life on the villa. And if we look at the range of finds, it's going to tell us a lot about diet, about the number of people who are probably living in the villa, and their social interactions. We know a lot more about the bone collection. We know we've got hare, dormice, freshwater, saltwater fish, a range of birds from songbirds to domestic farm fowl, and other animals really. So that's quite interesting, and it's going to be quite important in terms of looking at bone assemblages probably for Roman Britain, because the wealth of the information that survived is quite good. The wood has been quite interesting. We do have a lot of oak within this context. Some of it appears to be wooden infill from the culverts. Other bits seem to be from barrels. We have the remains of the fence still that we're excavating, stakes, wooden offcuts from carpentry work. Even more so this year, that's been exciting, is the retrieval of seeds. So we've got quite a lot of seeds from different plants that are coming out, and those need further investigation, but it's going to tell us a lot about the ecology of the area and what was being utilised. The pottery assemblage from that context is also extremely interesting. The majority of the pottery that we find in that is what we call fineware. It's tableware, as opposed to the coarsewares that you tend to find across most of the site. I think we're going to be able to tell a lot about the circumstances of how that material was gathered and what sort of context it was coming from. And also it provides us a very good dating base to be allied to the coins. I think there's about 20 or 30 coins that have come from that excavated context.
Tell me about your favourite finds this year.
We have a lathe-turned wooden fragment, which appears to be the leg, possibly from a light chair. And that's quite fine and quite interesting in that. And literally a few moments ago I was shown a piece of a glassware vessel, a little drinking cup, which had a gladiator on the outside of it, which is quite exciting to see. And it's things like that I particularly find interesting, that reflect on people's activities and interests. I was shown today a piece of a jaw of a wolf, which is quite exciting, finding wild animals like that, or the remains of them on the site.
Do you want people digging during this? Yeah, go for it.
In 2005, Time Team included Whitehall Villa in its big Roman dig. Animal bones was one of the subjects they tackled.
So much so they can afford to build the house, and I think the key there really lies in the animal bones.
Okay, and happily we find ourselves with an animal bone specialist, Naomi Sykes. What have we got on the table in front of us? A load of old bones.
Oh, to me it's like looking at a table. Absolutely fantastic what we've got here. It's amazing sheep-dominated assemblage where we've got...
To illustrate that point in comedy fashion, we have the cutout of a pre-Roman sheep, relatively small. Bone would go there, and Neil can reveal the monster Roman sheep. Hurrah, and bone goes there.
Okay, we'll have to leave it.
So, putting together all the evidence from surveys, from finds, and from the remains and patterns in the ground, what impression does it give of what was going on here in Roman times?
At the height of the development of this site, we're looking at an estate that's based on wool production, that is producing enough revenue and resources to really indulge itself in the Roman way of life. The people who were living here were making a statement about their Romanisation, their Romanitas, and they had the resources and the finances to do that.
Now the villa and the roundhouses have been reburied. You can see where the villa was from the different grass sown over that area. The major focus of attention has now switched to the building that has emerged to the east of the site, Bathhouse 2, which was built before the other bathhouse.
In Bathhouse 2 so far we have 3 heated rooms and a stoke room, which is known as a pryfernum. In the central one we have what looks to be a semicircular or apsidal-ended room, which is a bit of an alcove going out, which probably would have had a sunken heated bath in it.
Bathhouse 2 lies below the spring line and has remained wet throughout the excavations. When it rains, it floods very quickly. Much of the water flows away slowly along a Roman drain which cuts right across the hypocaust.
If you build a heated floor system to get hot air around an area, the last thing you want is actually to have cold water coming up through the floor system. So what we see through the middle of the site in terms of this drain is an attempt in the Roman period to actually get rid of the water from the spring, but that really didn't succeed, and that's the reason why Bathhouse 2 disappeared.
What more might there be to find here?
Well, I think we've only got half of this building. What we've got are all the heated rooms. What we don't have are all the preparation rooms, if you like, the apoditerium, the tepidarium, the frigidarium, all these rooms that you go through that are traditionally in the bathhouses. We only have half of the picture. The earlier bathhouse really dates to the mid-late 3rd century. It's gone out of use by the 4th century, the early 4th century. Then from the early 4th century through until the early 5th century is bathhouse 1. The fact that the earlier bathhouse is, at least in terms of its underfloor heating system, is 4 times larger than the later one, suggests that they were probably using the bathhouse in a different way. Now, it might be on just a simple fact that bathing went out of fashion on a large scale. But it's more likely that the larger bathhouse, the early bathhouse, reflects a specialist use of the landscape in terms of the earlier villa. Now it's very difficult to interpret what that might be, but what is interesting is that we have a very large collection of hair bones from the site. Probably one of the largest, if not the largest, in Roman Britain, of bones of hairs of all ages, which suggests that we may have had a farm here. Now, what's interesting about that is that there is a religious connotation to hares and to hunting, and people may have been coming here to hunt the hare and then utilising the bath, which would account for a bigger sort of bath than is necessary for a communal estate bath. But by the later 4th century, then that function is no longer applicable, and all people want to do is just use it for their daily leisure and ablutions.
There have been more interesting finds this year. Which is Steve's favourite?
I don't think I've moved on since I was asked this question several years ago, in that the last time I said that it was the bone hairpins. And interestingly enough, this year, exactly the same things happened. We found another bone hairpin, which was exquisitely tall at the top. And it's the simple things like that that really put you in touch with the people of the past that I found the most engaging.
Bathhouse 1 will soon be reburied to protect it from further deterioration. Next year we'll be looking for the rest of Bathhouse 2.